After the brutal crucifixion of Jesus Christ, his followers were left shattered, disillusioned, and terrified. Their hopes had been shattered along with his body on the cross. The man they believed was the Messiah had been executed, and everything they had hoped for seemed lost. Now, with his body gone from the tomb, rumors of resurrection began to circulate, but many of the disciples struggled to grasp or believe the news. Their minds were clouded with grief, fear, and confusion. In the days immediately following Jesus' death, the disciples had secluded themselves. They gathered in a small room, the upper room in Jerusalem, where they thought they could find safety and perhaps some measure of comfort. All the doors and windows were securely shut and barred. They huddled together, whispering and exchanging anxious glances, unsure of what might happen next. Their hearts were heavy, and their minds were filled with questions. Was Jesus truly alive? If so, why hadn't he appeared openly to everyone? What was the meaning of these strange stories they'd heard? Some of them had seen the empty tomb. Mary Magdalene had encountered the risen Jesus and had told the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." John 20 verse 18. Others had heard reports from the women and the apostles, but the disciples remained cautious. Fear was their constant companion, and their minds battled with doubt and hope. Many were overwhelmed with feelings of failure and shame because they had abandoned Jesus at his most critical hour. Inside that room, the disciples sat in silence, their faces etched with worry. Suddenly, without any warning, an extraordinary event occurred. The room's atmosphere changed completely. The doors, which had been locked and secured, were not a barrier for Jesus. Without knocking or opening the door, Jesus appeared among them. The disciples gasped, startled, their hearts pounding in their chests. Some recoiled in fear, thinking they had seen a ghost. Their minds raced with questions. How could this be? What was happening? Jesus, standing before them, looked into their frightened eyes and gently spoke, "Peace be with you." His voice was calm, reassuring, and filled with authority. The words seemed to cut through the fear like a soothing balm. Then, to prove his identity and reassure them further, he showed them his hands and his side. The wounds, the nail marks in his hands and the spear wound in his side, were clear and unmistakable. These scars told a story of suffering and sacrifice, but now they were signs of victory and life. The disciples stared in awe, their hearts overwhelmed. Some couldn't contain their tears and began to cry, tears of relief, joy, and disbelief. Others looked at his wounds in silent wonder, struggling to believe what they saw. The sight of Jesus alive and bearing the marks of his crucifixion was more than they could comprehend. It was proof that death had been defeated. Jesus knew their hearts and their fears. He gently said, "Peace be with you," once more. His words carried the weight of divine compassion and reassurance. He then breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit." This act signified the beginning of a new life, a spiritual rebirth, and the empowerment they would need for the mission ahead. The Holy Spirit would dwell within them, guiding, strengthening, and comforting them. This encounter, however, was not complete. One of the disciples, Thomas, was missing from the room that evening. Thomas was skeptical and cautious, often questioning and searching for tangible proof. When his fellow disciples recounted seeing Jesus alive, Thomas was not convinced. He demanded concrete evidence. "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, the disciples gathered again in the same locked room. This time, Thomas was among them. The atmosphere was tense and expectant. The doors were once again securely shut, perhaps out of fear or habit. Suddenly, without any warning, Jesus appeared among them again. His presence was peaceful and commanding. He looked directly at Thomas and said, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Jesus' words were gentle yet firm, inviting Thomas to trust beyond sight. Overcome with emotion, Thomas fell to his knees and exclaimed, "My Lord and my God!" His doubt was replaced with profound faith and worship. This moment was pivotal not only for Thomas but for all who witnessed it. It demonstrated that Jesus understood human doubts, fears, and uncertainties. He was willing to meet his followers in their brokenness, offering reassurance and proof of his resurrection. His wounds were not hidden but displayed openly, emphasizing that his sacrifice was real and necessary for salvation. Why is this story so significant? It reveals that Jesus does not shy away from our fears or doubt. Instead, he enters into them, walking through locked doors of our hearts and minds, to bring peace, hope, and life. His resurrection was not just a miraculous event in history, but a living reality that continues to transform lives today. He shows us that faith often requires trust beyond what is visible, and that his wounds serve as eternal signs of love and sacrifice. Throughout this encounter, Jesus teaches us that he is willing to come into our darkness, our fears, and our doubts. He offers peace in moments of chaos, reassurance in times of uncertainty, and proof that love is stronger than death. His wounds are a testament to his suffering, but also to his victory. They remind us that true life often comes through sacrifice, and that hope can emerge even from death's darkest shadows. As Jesus prepared to leave his disciples, he offered a final blessing. "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." John 20 verse 29. This statement underscores the importance of faith, trusting in what we cannot see and holding on to hope amid uncertainty. Believing in Jesus' resurrection is not just about sight but about trusting in his promises and recognizing his presence in our lives. This story encourages us to open our hearts, even when they are locked in fear or doubt. Jesus meets us there with compassion and grace. His wounds, his words, his presence, they all invite us to believe and trust, even when we struggle to see clearly. His resurrection is a living truth that empowers us to live with courage, hope, and love. In conclusion, the encounter in the upper room is a powerful reminder that Jesus walks through our locked doors, through walls of fear, doubt, and despair, to bring us peace and new life. His wounds are signs of his love, his presence is a promise of hope, and his Spirit is available to all who believe. The message remains: blessed are those who believe without seeing, for they walk by faith, not by sight. This detailed retelling emphasizes the emotional depth, spiritual significance, and transformative power of Jesus' post-resurrection appearances. It highlights his compassion, understanding of human doubts, and his willingness to enter into our fears, offering peace and reassurance. The story encourages believers to trust in Jesus' presence and promises, even when circumstances seem uncertain, reminding us that faith is a journey rooted in trust, love, and hope.